There's two major shifts since the ChatGPT era.
The big value out of AI is the ability to do personalization at scale.
There's no big tech company competing with you, then you're not building something super substantial.
Don't expect the AI to be perfect.
Almost every domain expert has like an AI agent for it.
It'll significantly outperform like ChatGPT.
Like, not everything could be fully done by AI.
Hey everyone, this is Grace Gong, a good friend from San Francisco, and she is joining us today on the Venture Capital podcast. She is like a premier VC podcaster. She's got two shows. One is Venture with Grace, and another is called the Smart Venture Podcast. She's also an investor in San Francisco, and she just held a phenomenal AI conference in San Francisco called the Smart AI Conference. I flew down for it. I was impressed. She announced it, and within 2 or 3 weeks had a phenomenal conference. I think one of my favorite presenters was one of the CPO for Cisco that talked, and like, man, that guy, he could deliver a speech, and you just
He's
had
amazing. He's a goat.
thousands of people there presenting, sharing thoughts. She had an after-hour VIP dinner that I broke into. Like, Grace is legit.
Thank you. I'm crying. And Kai also have like this video so I can like clip it to put on my TikTok.
For sure.
Yeah, just to improve my legitimacy, just in case. But thank you so much, John. I'm so glad you came to the Bay Area, and um yeah, I'm so glad you had a good experience at our conference.
It was phenomenal. Why'd you launch the Smart AI conference?
I genuinely feel like there's like a few things. I could start with like the podcast. Like I feel like I know that this was like not necessarily originally planned, but like I guess like so I started my podcast because I was originally an international student, and when I came to the Bay Area, or when I came to the US, I actually didn't really have much of a, like a business connection. And when I moved to the Bay Area, I figured like I can just like run into a lot of these like really amazing executives like on the San Francisco area or like Berkeley or Stanford campus. I thought that I have the responsibility. I mean, I feel like I'm very mission driven, but I feel like I have the responsibility to actually bring that to share with people like my younger self or like people around the world, because a lot of the knowledge or like a lot of the things in tech or venture capital is very opaque. So I kind of wanted to be I want, like, people who doesn't really have the access to actually have access to these kind of knowledge and information. So that's why I started the podcast. And fast forward to today, we have reached like over 110 different countries. And on my LinkedIn, I got 10 million impressions in 365 days. And I feel like I was very fortunate. And I just really wanted to make sure that, like, you know, people could be able to access to information that they are not very easily to getting access to. That's why I started the podcast, and then I feel like the conference is kind of like a reflection on that, because I feel very fortunate that I've been just doing like a daily podcast in the past like a year and a half. Um, I was able to feature some of like the top venture capitalists or C-level executives from different big tech companies, as well as like founders who have like created phenomenal companies in the unicorn status. And I kind of wanted to bridge the gap between like online and offline to find a place that for people to all gather together and share their own like thoughts and experience. And for the 100 list and the conference, I think about them collectively and separately. As I think for collectively, because I feel like the offline experience is very important for people who I've interacted online, and a lot of them wants to meet each other. They want to find belonging in a group, in a community. So I kind of wanted to create that community gathering experience for them. On the other hand, I feel like the list itself is kind of like a celebration of innovation. Um, just because I seriously feel like I've encountered like there's so many lists about like the later stage companies in the world. They are, you know, they're by, like, the most, like, famous magazine and everything, but I feel like in the end of the day, like, it's not the one that who like, because, like, at the stage that they were covering by every press, they probably don't need your help anymore. They probably don't, like, need the like, they already have a lot of coverage, but I kind of, like, feel like the younger or, like, the more earlier stage company, they could benefit a lot from, like, being highlighted, especially if they're doing something phenomenal. And as a early stage investor slash, like, angel investor myself, I just personally wanted to celebrate the earlier stage company that I've seen come across my desk, come across, like, my network to help them get the highlight that they actually need, and that's why I kind of created a list as well.
Well, I thought it was a phenomenal group, amazingly well curated. I think you did a phenomenal job. From that event, what bottlenecks in AI company buildings has stood out to the most from you from the conversations that you've curated?
I think, like, one of the things that I thought was a bottleneck is, like, how many repetitive customer would people have after, like, this current AI era? I identify there's, like, 2 major AI era from, like, a business standpoint. One is, like, the ChatGPT era, which is, like, the era that everyone discover consumer AI. People started using ChatGPT in their day-to-day life, and, like, people started building on top of ChatGPT to build like different AI agents and different like AI um, products to like accelerate like the AI adoption into human society. And then the other part is like the current AI agent era, which is I call it the lovable era. So I feel like there's two major shifts since the ChatGPT era. I haven't really talked about this or like read about this on LinkedIn. I should be blogging about it. But I think the major thing is like the difference between like the ChatGPT era to the Lovable era is like the Lovable era, everyone and their mom can build their own tool, using Lovable or like equivalent of tools that they could build their day-to-day, like, useful things, like a fitness app or, something like a diet tracker or, like, anything in their day-to-day world. So, like, the consumer can build their own app. And then what does that mean for, like, the enterprise society is I think the bottleneck would be, like, there is no moat in a lot of the technical solutions, and you have to build really strong distribution to actually enter a market, even for enterprise grade products. I think because of, like, there is so much of the like, there's, like, a huge group of enterprise software are targeting SMBs beyond the bigger enterprise, so I feel like the SMBs are not gonna be super careful about, like, if something is secure, and then so I feel like the bottleneck would be you have to build really strong distribution and go to market having a really strong go-to-market strategy versus if you're just, like, launching your AI product and then wishing it can just go viral.
So, Grace, I'm curious to dig on this a little bit more because I've been saying the same thing for a while. I think a lot of people have, but I don't know that I've seen a lot of people like vibe code an app, put it out there, and start competing like in a meaningful way. I mean, there's a lot of YouTube videos of people like, oh yeah, I built this thing, and like, that like one of my favorite videos is one where they use Cloud Code to basically build Lovable in like an hour. Um, but you don't see them actually like putting it out there and competing yet, right? Like in a meaningful way. And I think like vibe coding actually to get something that's usable actually takes quite a bit of work and effort. Um, and so I'm curious, like, when do you think we will see people being able to actually build full-fledged applications that they can deploy in a way that's like truly democratized? Because I don't think we're quite there yet. But I think everybody can like see it, right? We're like, it's almost there. We can almost touch it, but like, it's not quite, right?
I kinda see my disagree just because like, I feel like I wanna be respectful for John's business. Because of, like, you are running a developer business, I feel like this may be, like, going a little bit against, like,
You
the
can say
trend of
whatever you
everyone.
want to say. We only
Okay.
have honesty here.
I think, like, I've heard so, I mean, I know the names of these companies, but I don't think I can, like, publicly say them yet, but there are one-person $7 million company in the VC society, like, in people I've seen that they code something that's when viral, you just didn't know that's a lovable product. They don't really advertise it as a lovable product. Those products are like more towards like the day-to-day use products. So, like, for example, let's call it like a fitness app, or let's call it like a scheduler for a dentist. So, like, those are not very, they're not publicized as a lovable product. There is a little bit more sophisticated technology behind it. It's not necessarily like I build it within an hour and then it become like viral. But I've seen like one person company or like very few people company that without, like, a technical background, they just built stuff that's, like, actually enterprise grade, and then I remember, like, I was having lunch with my mentor, and then my mentor told me about, like, they're they're, like, a well-known VC firm, and then they back, like, a company that's doing pet related, like, AI, and then, like, the CEO, who is, like, a non-technical person, was, like, a basically an MBA type of people, build the app that their entire company built over a weekend just to demonstrate that, like, we are not using enough AI tools. So I've seen this is, like, starting becoming a trend, and maybe in Silicon Valley, it's more extreme as, like, people are somewhat technical, but I don't see it, like, as, like, you and I built something that would just sell, but, like, I mean, I also see it to a degree. So it's just, like, I don't think people are publicizing as, like, they are a one-person company or, like, they have built this on Lovable because they don't want people to steal certain, like, identity, or, like, they don't want any massive attack to attack the business because it is, in the end of the day, not necessarily safe, but I've seen that becoming a trend, at least in Silicon Valley.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like I don't know that incumbents are quite feeling the pain yet
Oh,
from all
yeah,
these,
I
like,
don't.
small like, startups, right? And so there's maybe an element of that too, but they likely will be soon, right?
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, by Bottleneck, I really just felt like it's like because a lot of, like, big tech are, like, trying, or, like, big companies in general, they're trying AI, but I don't know how long they're gonna, like, use a certain product if they don't see a certain result, because I think, like, even bigger company, they have FOMO as well, so they just fear of, like, if they're not using AI, they're losing, or, like, if their competitor are using AI, so everyone feel, like, very necessary to, like, add AI to their budget. But on the other hand, I feel like a lot of these tools may not have, like, meaningful revenue impact, so, like, I think those tools are gonna be cut. So, like, I think that's gonna be a bottleneck in terms of, like, building AI tool that, like, from a product level, actually make, like, financial sense for people to continuously using it. That's kind of, like, what I meant by, like, bottleneck.
Well, I think
I don't
part of
know.
it too is that building in AI is a different flow in a lot of ways than, like, what a lot of companies have traditionally done, and so, like, I think your example of that CEO building something over the weekend is a really interesting one because, like, clearly, he or she has a lot of incredible, capable people on his team for sure. But they also have all these like inbuilt processes and standards and technical debt and all these other things that make it really hard to move fast. And so I do wonder if like there is an advantage to being just like 1, 2, 3 people that are, building from the ground up in AI and AI native from that perspective, just that they can move so fast and they don't suffer from any like sort of some cost fallacies and so forth.
Hmm? I could see
I
that.
feel like do you mean, like, if they build fast and then they're, like, not really, like, stable, basically, the product?
No, what I'm saying is like an incumbent, like these large enterprises. So there's that MIT study, right, that
Mhm.
came out that everyone's referencing,
Yeah,
95%,
95%
which
agents are not out,
yeah.
basically.
But also, like, there's no way, like, that's actually, like, true to a certain extent, right? Like, everybody's getting some productivity gains, from using some level of AI. But, yeah, like, I just wonder if, like, these big, large enterprises, it's just too hard to use AI as effectively as somebody that's, like, using it from the get-go, you know? It's almost like the analogy of grandma trying to, use the computer, and then her grandson is like, dancing circles around her on it kinda thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
I
sure.
met with the CIO of a company that has 1,000 employees ish today, and I told her to use Replit, But in their case, their org is not built where they can bring all their data and their flows to Replit. But I think it's very possible that someone starting on Replit today could, working within Replit's flows, begin to grow, and as Replit becomes better, bigger, they can grow, and I think you'll see more of that then happen.
Mm. I I feel like it is, like, for big company to adopt AI. I think the major challenges, like, I've hear about, like, I mean, every day I chat with, like, the founder of VCs. A lot of people are saying, you have to do, like, both, like, bottoms up and top down to, like, sell into enterprise as, like, not necessarily that just adoption, but um, I guess they are essentially a lot slower when it comes to, like, the security processes, because I'm sure you guys have heard of, like, these, like, the airline company that, like, just, like, randomly the chatbot reimburse people, like, just, like, pay for people's flight for free and stuff. So I feel like it's better that if they move a little bit slower than, if they just, like, enter with, like, full force to onboard a bunch of stuff that I feel like it will be not very secure to the company.
Yeah. But they are kinda caught in this dilemma of, like, if they don't move fast enough, they get disrupted by the up and comer, but if they move too fast,
Yeah.
they're gonna break things, right? And that's
Mhm.
just reality. I'm curious, what other, like, contrarian or surprising insights did you, take away from your conference?
I think the contrary there's, like, 2 major takeaways. Like, one thing is, like, from the Cisco president, I think he shared that, like, for any company, if you like, basically, you have to have, like, a tier 1 product, then, like, basically, if you don't have, like, a market pool, your product is not ready. Um, Meaning if you don't like, if you have, like, a 2nd tier sales team to sell, like, a 1st tier product, um, then your product is okay. So, like, basically, like, if you have, like, a 2nd tier sales team, like, you don't basically, the meaning is, like, it doesn't take a lot of effort to sell something that's, like, actually have market pull. At that time, you have, like, a successful product and company. And I think that's one really interesting take because I've also heard the opposite of the story many times as, like, people try to convince, like, 40 buyers or like 40, I guess, like, I only heard about, like, the start of that, trying to convince like 40 investors, like, or like 100 investors, like, their product would work, and then maybe like the 100% actually write a small check. So it's I don't know if it's like a equivalent to selling a particular product, but I do feel like having product market fit, or like find like spending time to build your own product, um, to a degree that, like, the market would just ask for it, without being very salesy, is, like, very important. And then the other, not like super contrarian take, or like actually feel like it's kind of contrarian as well, is it's like from the CR of Nebius, like Mark, he was the president of Twilio, and a former CRO of Twilio and former president of Cloudflare. And so I think one of the things that he said was like, there's no big tech company competing with you, then you're not building something super substantial. Um, because it kind of like validates your market, it validates your team, and then just like kind of like it's also like a market that kind of like just like worth fighting for. I feel like those are like the contrarian take in terms of like the macro level, basically. So those are like things that I felt like were really interesting to learn from them.
Yeah, it's kind of a non-contrarian, contrarian
Yeah,
perspective, right?
non-contrarian, contrarian perspective. Yeah.
I like it.
It's very meta.
Were there any, like, companies or demos that kinda made you rethink, like, how AI will, evolve over time, or, like, gave you a new perspective on, like, "Oh, that's I hadn't thought of it from that perspective before."
Um, I feel like not necessarily contrarian, but I would say like I summarize as like a really big trend. I think we could start from like the consumer world. Same as voice AI. Is that called NoteLM? Like I'm pretty sure I have it on my phone, but like basically
From Google, Notebook LLM.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So I feel like that's like very interesting phenomena as well. So, so basically people wanted to like, finish their email when they're driving or like trying to learn something by listening to it, but like just like dumping it into somewhere that can like create some sort of like voice file. So I feel like voice AI is like definitely a huge trend as well. So I think that the to summarize this, I feel like people started trying to spend less and less time in front of their computer, but they're trying to use AI to help them to get there.
Well,
The,
and that's
the,
a
the
big
guy,
promise, right? Is that AI can take care of a lot of things so we can have more experiences, right?
I
uh,
just want the AI to take care of the laundry basically at this point. I
Yeah.
just feel like the
that's
only thing AI cannot do is like anything physical.
Just
Yeah.
that's
wait for
coming.
Well,
Tesla's robots, right?
yeah, I'm
We'll
waiting
take
for that to
we'll
happen.
take the Rizbot and tell it to do your laundry.
Oh my god. What is it called? The Rizbot?
The Rizbot. Have you seen the Rizbot on TikTok?
No, what is it?
But we can put a clip in here in case you're
Okay.
watching on YouTube. But it's one of those humanoid like robots, and they've given it a voiceover and they've programmed it to troll people in Austin, Texas. So it walks around
Oh,
the
that
street, it has this really
that's
annoying laugh,
perfect. That's
and it's
so
got
perfect.
millions of views. There was actually one at the Inbound Summit by HubSpot that you attended with us.
Oh my god, that's intense. Okay, that's very interesting. Why Texas? What happened to Texas?
Well, I just think they're based out of Austin. I think the robot cost
Oh,
like
okay.
$40,000,
Oh,
and
wow.
someone had some cash to burn, but it laughs at people, it flips people off, it'll fall down and stand up, it'll talk to people, it'll quote The Office.
Oh, called
So
The
I think,
Office? I love
and
The
it's
Office.
got digits, so I think it's getting close.
Okay, that's exciting.
But going back to the comment that you were talking about automating workflows with voice, the one of the AI leaders in Utah that I went hiking with this morning, he he constantly is telling me about his workflow where he's built a home server, and he'll drive to work and he'll tell it to code something, and then he drives home and he tells it to code something, and before he goes to bed he tells it to code something. And I haven't actually measured his output, but of people I've talked to, I think he's legitimately making this happen. And his focus is right now is, we're so focused on perfect. Don't expect the AI to be perfect. Just get it to be close, and often close is better than spending 2 weeks coding it by hand.
Very interesting. Actually, speaking of Texas or speaking of like the getting it too close, I kind of believe in that. But on the other hand, like when I was like actually moderating the I5 VC Summit, and then on our panel, there was like the former CEO of BigCommerce. He has like a really interesting perspective because he used to work at PayPal as well. So he was saying that like AI to disrupt financial industry could be very hard because it needs, like, a lot of accuracy, but for healthcare or, like, some other industry, it's, like, a lot easier. I personally kind of, like, see my I feel like that's, like, a really good perspective because like, not everything could be fully done by AI. I feel like if they AI fail at, like, folding my laundry, that's fine, but if they, like, mistakenly transact my money somewhere or, like, diagnose me with, like, some disease that I don't have, I will be very sad. So, I think, like, there's definitely industry that needs, like, the accuracy, but there's, like, some other industry that can just, be okay with the accuracy, but, like, more focused on efficiency.
I wonder if
We
that
had an
kinda
AI.
goes back to the comment I made earlier, which is, like, we're not quite there where just, like, anybody can build an app because they don't the AI is good, but it's rarely that it gets it to, like, 100%. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
if you're, like, John's friend, right, where you're a senior dev, you're like, "This is great. It'd, like, save me, like, tons of hours, and I can totally fill in the last, like, 20% gap." But if you're a junior dev or you're non-technical, like, that last even if it's 5% means your app doesn't work, right? It's almost like self-driving cars. It's like, well, why how come we don't have self-driving cars everywhere? And it's because like, getting to 100%, which is really what you almost like you have to have 100%, right? And you have all these corner cases, is just, like, incredibly difficult, to achieve, so
for
yeah.
sure.
Today we had an AI Utah demo day. I probably should call it more show and tell. We had a Stanford PhD present what they're doing with Smarter DX, And, when AI first came out, I was thinking, there's gonna be an AI doctor who does everything, but they've just narrowed it down. They only look at the charts that doctors provide, and they believe they can provide magnitudes order greater on accuracy. But I think we're just seeing it just being very, very narrowly applied.
Yeah, like, sector specific AI companies, I feel like that's a very huge trend. Like, I think almost like every industry has like an AI agent these days. From like, dentist to like lawyer to like anything like almost every domain expert has like an AI agent for it. When we're evaluating the companies for our list, especially the customer service segment, it's like a very hard competition as we would see like so many people are competing in this space, same as like developer tools. I think those are very popular category as well.
Mhm. I've
I
thought
got
about those spaces for years.
Yeah.
After
yeah,
my
I got
last startup, before Codebase and after TinyTorch, I'm like, how do I do AI-based customer support?
oh yeah, what's your last startup?
TinyTorch, we were a Hootsuite competitor, and Facebook turned off the API and killed us. But at that startup, I answered about 20,000 customer support tickets. And so I had this whole vision of workflow of like how it would actually, when you submit a ticket, it would pay attention to like what page was there. It'd pay attention to the context. It'd pay attention to frequency. And
What
there's a
is
lot of things that
I
Zendesk
guess
just wasn't doing.
I'm just curious about like in that domain, like do you guys expect there will be like one winner that takes all, or do you guys expect something like, a lot of people would just be building the space and then there will be like a niche
I
customer
think
success agent for everything?
I think if you look at the main markets, what you're seeing is there's not one AI agent that takes all, and every time they're making an update, each one is just marginally better. So I think most AI is beneficial when it's specifically applied to a specific problem set. And the more specific it is and the more you can train it, it'll significantly outperform like ChatGPT. So
Doesn't
like
that
if
mean
we're if
though then that like anyone that's building a company solving for that is ultimately going to fail because the companies themselves will just build their own tool and that will be 10 times better because it's based on their own data set.
I heard it's like I think like there is I think that it's just like a lot of work to build your own tool. Like I've chatted with like the customer success startups or like customer success AI startups. I heard people were um like, a lot of people are just uploading their own data to these, like, kind of tools. So not necessarily, like, they're building their own tools, but they're just using their own data,
Yeah, but
these,
that
like
be that but that's my question though is cuz to the earlier part of the conversation it's like as it gets easier and easier and easier at some point do I not just build my own tool because it is literally like over the weekend I build the tool, I bring all my data back over, and now I'm saving who knows how much, right? That I would have been paying to another company who's just paying ChatGPT or Claude or, and marketing it up, right? So,
I definitely feel like for a smaller company, that's definitely possible. I know like one of our dinner guests, he is building basically chatbot for the customer service or like chatbot for like AI agents. So basically they're I think his biggest clients are all the people who have tried to build chatbots on their own in their own company. Because there's just, like, a lot of, like, different moat for that or, like, there's a lot of, like, technical, um, difficulty to, like, get it, like, right. So I'm not, like, super technical, so I'm not exactly sure if that's the case, but I feel like for like, I see, like, in Silicon Valley, I feel like the non-super core function kind of app, people are still gonna buy for it, like, or, like, buy it than versus, like, if it's, like, a core function to your business, they're gonna build it. That's my prediction.
yeah, interesting. Yeah,
I
I
think you're
Like
gonna
mean,
see a specific application that they train on your data is what's probably gonna happen.
yeah. Well, maybe too, it's one of those things. So I think like the big value out of AI is the ability to do personalization at scale. Like, if you boil it all down, like that is, in my opinion, like the really big unlock. And it may just be that these companies that are building it for other companies, right, whatever that product is, if they can build in the ability to make it highly personalized on every single customer based on their data, but also based on like their tech stack and how they operate and the types, the distribution of their employees or their go-to-market strategy, like all these little aspects that impact your product in some way, shape, or form. Then it maybe gets to the point where it's like, yeah, like we're just not going to build something that's, like, that customized for us, and this is already that customized, let's just keep going with what we've got, right? But I think to the extent it's, like, enterprise SaaS today, I think that the real difference between it and AI is that even if you build, like, an incredible product, you're only gonna be, like, I don't know what, like, 70, 80% complete for any given customer that you might have, right? Like, it's only gonna be, like, 70, 80% of, like, relative to perfection. Um And so there's always room for, like, a slightly better product that meets a few more needs of that customer, and my hope is that, like, that's where AI really has an opportunity to step in and take it from 70 to 80% all the way up to, like, 100% or close to 100%, value add. I don't know, we'll see. It's a fast evolving market.
Beyond chat, Grace, what do you see as the next interaction model, like the next major shift in UX?
I think it's becoming chat as like, every from like a fashion app to like these any other like from like booking your dentist appointment. I feel like people are implementing chat into it. So like one example would be like there's a company called Alta. They do essentially fashion recommendations. So like for example, what you're gonna wear next week. And essentially I feel like it's kind of like a chat GPT for fashion. So like you kind of like tell them, hey, I'm going to a ball or like I'm going to like a party. I'm going to like, plan my next week's like work outfit. So essentially the primary function is to like chat with the bot to tell them your request and then they will like recommend you something. So I feel like the next interface or like the next UX is like primarily going to be chat. There is also other companies that are building in like a similar category. So for example, I'm an investor of a company called Generative Alpha. So essentially they're ChatGPT for finance bros. So like if you live in if you're like working at a hedge fund or if you're working at any private equity firm, so there is always like the analysts that are essentially like researching a specific subject and doing all the research, pulling data from financial reports. And that company is building something to replace the human agent to do the report for you or like to do the basically the hard research for you. So I feel like a lot of the newer interface is a chat equivalent function.
Hey,
Okay.
Grace, do you worry at all, or how do you think about, or what have you heard in terms of there's all these tools that are like, yeah, we're going to get rid of like the junior people. And the
Um,
thing I wonder is like, well, then how do we ever get senior people?
yeah, so there's actually people training for that. Like, so I actually heard about so like I had the managing director of Mercor on our podcast like on Monday. So I think I asked something similar, but not just like his answer, but I guess like from a lot of people's answer was like there will be companies that are doing the training. And I feel like it's kind of backwards because technically, like these will be the junior people on your team to do it. But I do think like it is one of the biggest fear for people to become like dumber as like they're very real dumber and lazier because they're super relied on uh, you know, AI to code for them or like AI to do a certain like marking script. So like there won't be any kind of like junior people right now. So there won't be any senior people later.
So
So
people
like
are
I
worried
heard
about
there's
that, but you think it gets solved with training.
I don't know if personally I agree training is the best way. I still feel like people need some sort of like monitoring to AI, but I don't necessarily feel like you should still train people for the same skill. Unless I feel like you're like a doctor that's actually performing surgery on people, I think you should try it immediately. But I think like the rest of the like business related things, I think you just need a different set of skills to like kind of like solve those problems.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Uh, at my fund, University Girls Fund, we hire a ton of interns. So that's a big part of like what we do is we teach students how to do venture investing. And part of that application process, we have them do a case study. So we give them like 3 companies in a week. We don't give them any real information. And we say, like, go evaluate this company as our investment opportunity and come back to us. And I thought like this last semester's cohort would have like the best submissions we've ever seen because like they've got like these incredible tools at their fingertips that like are fully fleshed out, fully adopted, like, you know, in a way that just hasn't been possible before. And honestly, like, I think the applications were the worst we've seen in, like, 16 years of doing this. And everything, like, fell on into 2 buckets. Either 1, they didn't know how to use the AI tools, and so the end result was, like, not very good. And then on the other end of the spectrum was they relied too heavily on the tool, right? They just dumped a prompt into deep research, and then dropped that into a PowerPoint presentation and submitted it. And then when we asked them, we were like, even basic questions like, they would put like, "Oh, the pre-money valuation is X." We'd be like, "What is pre-money?" And they couldn't answer it, right? Um, and so I don't know, it just kind of made me like really worried from a perspective of like, you need to be using AI to get huge productivity gains. Cause if you're not, you're like behind, right? So like that's a given. But today, like either people don't know how to use it effectively or they're like overusing it and they don't know how to think critically and learn from it. And I think we need to have, I don't know, some sort of like fundamental shift in how we do education and learning. And I don't know what that is. I'm curious. Do you have any thoughts or ideas of how we do that? How we solve for that?
I just like personally, I feel like I'm learning by doing type of person. So like
Yeah.
I just always like have the bias towards action. So I feel like they have to learn by just start doing tasks. So this is actually like I have also invested in a company called LD Learning. So like basically what they do is like they use so right now there's like a lot of like engineers that are um they are very high quality raw talents in Africa. However, they are not necessarily super trained for the newest like tools and AI knowledge. And so this company created like a learning curriculum by like basically split the big projects from clients to Gatted them got them to Africa, so essentially the people who are learning, they're also earning from the company, so, like, I know it's like it's a concept that's similar to necessarily, like, you just, like, kind of, like, hire an engineering crew, but they're not really hiring anyone, but they're just, like, paying people to learn, so I guess it's also some sort of, like, framing or, like, marketing effects that, like, people are both learning and training themselves and then, like, working on these real life projects that by, the company's clients. So I feel like it's, like, a really good way to approach it as, like, people need to start working on actual tasks. So what does that mean for your program? Maybe it's, like, you ask people to source, like, 10 different companies and, like, like, creating memos, like, to instead of, like, just use ChatGPT, but also, like, kind of, like, presentations on, like, how they could leverage AI to kind of, like, get what kind of information, how do they do diligence beyond the ChatGPT, and did they call someone? Did they kind of reach out to the founder? Like, you can evaluate the ability or you can kind of, like, train them in a different direction, more focusing on, like, the human side of things or more focusing on the result and outcome side of things instead of I guess, like, be doing a quiz on, like, what's, like, pre-money, but I guess, like, more towards, like, the outcome driven training, basically.
Well,
I
yeah,
don't
I
know
mean,
if
it's less for
yeah.
us about like quizzing them on a specific term. It's just like, hey, if you're going to put that on your presentation, you probably ought to know what it means.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah.
And part of it is like we're not looking for people to have the right answer. We want to understand how people think, right? And how far did they go, right? To your point, did they call somebody? Right? Like we have applicants in the past where like they called 150 retail locations for a product company, right? Like, yeah, we're gonna take that person. I don't care what the rest of their analysis looked like, that's some real hustle, right? So, but it's almost like we're not getting any of that now. Like, and that's the thing that concerns
Yeah.
me, but
So, like, people are a lot more, like, lazier and, like,
yeah.
not doing anything. Yeah,
I
I feel
think
like
we're
that is very concerning to a
yeah,
degree.
I think we're at the stage where, like, with your Goldman Sachs, you could create a custom LLM that trains potential hires, and that's how you get through the junior talent problem. You can actually run them on problem sets and see who performs the best.
Yeah.
Like, or you could do the same thing, Peter.
I just feel like they probably don't need to, they don't need training for deep research. That's, like, at least, like, not in my I feel like that's, like, a good thing as, like, if they're, like, already using AI tools, then, like, they just, like, do absolutely nothing. I fear if a person just literally came in with their own, like I like that they will, like, think very differently than the rest of the society, but I don't think it's, like, necessarily the worst thing ever if they know how to use deep research.
We were talking about the future of the younger generation. How do you get jobs in AI? And I think there's an empty space that's opening up. And instead of it being universities to train people, AI, you can train them on a custom data set for your type of business. So I was with Carlos Kemeny this morning. He's got 2 PhDs, and he was telling me how he can create like math problems and whatnot. How he's taking an AI, he's taking all the PDFs. He's like, we're gonna make these math problems fun specifically for my son. And my takeaway from that was, well, why could Goldman Sachs not do the same type of thing? And they could also make it publicly available like Harvard's courses are. If you want a job here, we are going to teach you not how to do deep research, but analysis, but how to approach problems. And if you're not good enough, we can train you on it and see how you're going through, our custom course. And they could also select candidates that way.
I think though, like, there's an element of like, um, well, if you're Goldman Sachs, how do you know who to take, right? And so like,
Let the AI tell you.
yeah, but the AI has to go off of something, right? Um, so I don't know, like that's part of the challenge is like it's not that we look for perfect answers in our recruiting. We look for people that are passionate and that are smart, right? Like, demonstrate that to us through this case study. And I 100% agree, Grace. Like, you need to learn how to use deep research. Like it's incredibly important. I also think that like my prompts and deep research for things related to like tech and venture are, and maybe I'm biased here, but are a lot better than what my students' prompts are for like the same thing because I have all of this like I've got like 16 years of doing venture investing behind my belt, right? Like and there's a lot of context and experience that goes into like crafting that prompt just the way I want it and then engaging with the AI to pull out like the really important things that you I think it's hard to replicate if you're not like getting real experience, you're in the trenches getting real reps, but
I feel like that's the beauty of, like, what you can coach them just because like, if they everybody is, like, equipped with, like, the same amount of information and experience, it, like, will be living in, like, a way boringer university or, like, universe in general. Like, I feel like it's good that people can explore on their own as well. So, like, I feel like it's yeah, that's just, like, my point, basically.
Okay. Well, as we're wrapping up, let's do a quick lightning round and then give us a shout out about like, how they can subscribe to your podcast, how they can follow you more. So let's do that. So what's one belief in AI that you think that we believe now that will obviously be wrong in 1 to 2 years?
Oh god. Um, my belief in AI. I don't believe in, like, I mean, I believe there will be, like, a hardware that powers AI, but I don't think it's gonna be the current solution that we have, which is, like, pen or glasses, basically. And that's just my personal belief. I think those are great, but I'm not sure if, like, I'll see everybody's just wearing, like, a glasses that's, like, just tells you what's the weather and stuff.
Like what Cluely's doing?
I don't want to point names. I don't think Clueless is telling you about the weather. I think it's just general. I also don't think they're doing glasses anyway. I'm just saying any kind of hardware currently, like, I feel like the current hardware solution is probably not
Yeah. So
the
I don't know how they're doing. Just in one of their ads, they're showing someone being on a date and like
yeah,
prompting that someone through that date. Oh, you like this? What's your
yeah.
background?
The founder was
Okay.
on our podcast as well, so the founders but I feel like they're like, genius at, like, marketing, but I don't think the product was a glasses, so
Yeah. I don't think,
Okay, so you
anyways, that
don't
was just one of the
think
things.
like the current hardware solutions that are being
our own
promoted
glass.
are
Yeah,
what's
yeah,
going to be the hardware solution?
yeah, just my personal opinion. I could be completely wrong, like, maybe, like, 2 years later, everybody's just wearing the glasses.
All right, if you have 10 million to invest this quarter, what missed price areas would you back?
That's a great question. I think, like, this may be a recency bias because I was just on a call with someone who is doing, like, 3D printing with AI. I feel like that's very interesting. Just maybe, like, any, hardware related things, I think I would back because I think in the end of the day, like, to implement AI into our day-to-day life, you kind of have to have an entry point from a physical perspective.
Yeah, I think yeah, I love that. To like get to that like next level, it's like your laundry, right? You're like,
Yeah,
man, it would be so
exactly.
nice to
I just don't need more, like, you know,
voice recorders, note recorders.
ChatGPT, like, marketing tool, like, I feel like ChatGPT is perfect marketing tool. I just don't need, like, another, like, "This is how we supposed to turn your podcast into a blog," and stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
No offense to, like, anyone who's doing that.
Okay.
If you're
Last.
really good, please, like, reach out, but
Uh huh.
but if you're, like, 10x then ChatGPT, please, like, reach out, but
Okay. What's your favorite negative signal that secretly predicts success?
negative signal
Yeah, negative signal.
negative signal. I think maybe ADHD, like, it's, like, a perfect thing for venture just because like, if you're, like, so obsessed with one area, you're gonna miss the rest of the innovation, I think.
That that's interesting. One of my thoughts last night is, have I risen to the level of my ADHD? Like, I feel
Sorry,
like
what?
throughout my business career, as you're talking about just about ADHD and predicting success, I feel
Yeah.
like I'm really good at a certain point, but getting past that point, I feel like ADHD is a curse.
No, well, I think, like okay, so I think, like, to do, like, a lot of things in one area towards your, like, a specific niche, I think that's very important. Then, like, you just change where you're going every day, that's a problem.
I think if you're ADHD, it's easy to be a product leader to an extent, but at a certain point, you have to switch over to an operator role, and so that makes it tricky. But I was just looking at what is seen as a negative signal that predicts success. Peter?
I was just gonna say, people with ADHD, and like I have it, is the advantage is I think like all innovation comes from the intersection of two places. And
That's
if you're just
true.
constantly curious about lots of different things, that's where you find these like corners of innovation that are really interesting. So, but I like that. I like that insight.
Love that. Okay.
Sweet. Well, Grace, this was a super fun conversation. Thank you for joining us
Thank you.
today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell our audience how to find more Grace goodness.
I am on LinkedIn. I yap on LinkedIn every day. I have a daily show called Venture with Grace. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and everywhere else. And then I have a podcast called Smart Venture Podcast, which is my original podcast with a lot of tech executive. You can find it on also Spotify, Apple, and YouTube, like everywhere.
Mhm. We'll include the links below for this
Thank you.
episode. So if you're
Super.
watching or listening and want more, check it out because she's amazing. I subscribe.
Thank you. Thank
It's
you.
great
I will
stuff.
like put this episode on my website as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks,
I
Grace.
appreciate it. Thank you guys so much.